Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. And this week, we're taking a look at a legendary Overdrive pedal that really was at the vanguard of the boutique pedal industry. Also happens to be one of my favourite pedals ever. But what's it called?
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Introduced in 1997 by its designer Paul Cochran, it's relatively easy to draw several parallels between the storied history of the Tim and that of the Klon Centaur. Both overdrive pedals, both for a period exclusively hand-built by their designer, and both consequently reaching insane prices in the second-hand market at various points. And both, crucially, designed to take your sound and just give you more, without fundamentally changing your tone. Of course, the Klon was designed for Bill Finnegan wanting to open up his twin reverb at lower levels, and the Tim was designed by Paul Cochran wanting to open up his non-master volume Marshall at lower levels, but crucially without imparting too many tonal characteristics on the amp from the pedal. As Paul Cochran himself has said, I didn't want the pedal to have any preset voice, and thus with its 3 clipping options and its cut EQ controls that work kind of in reverse is the easiest way to think of it, it's kind of designed to be an extension of your amp rather than an addition, and in that respect it is truly unique in that I can honestly hand on heart say it's the only pedal I've ever had which at various points I've forgotten is actually turned on. Such is how natural it sounds. I guess by that extent it is the very definition of a transparent overdrive pedal. Obviously a little bit of a buzz phrase in the guitar industry. But what does that mean, and would you really want a transparent overdrive pedal? The obvious reference point for a pedal, which is pretty much the antithesis of transparent, would of course be the venerable Ibanez Tube Screamer, iconic in nearly every sense of the word, and famed for its incredibly distinctive mid-hump, bass roll-off, and compression. Irrespective of whatever amp you're running into, when you kick on a Tube Screamer, you're going to know about it. Such is the strength of its tonal characteristic and identity. Take pretty much any Stevie Ray recording, and you will hear a Tube Screamer in full flight, hitting the front end of a Vibreverb, Super Reverb, a Marshall, or a Dumble. Now, depending on what you're after, a pedal with such a strong tonal characteristic and identity may be precisely what you're looking for. Conversely, if like myself, you have a core tone that you are fundamentally happy with, but just need more, then this is where the Tim, and by extension the Timmy, its smaller, less kind of featured brother, step up. In this next clip, you'll see how it takes my core tone, in this case a Panucci Gold Top and a Tweed Deluxe emulation, and pushes it into a natural sing-in, sustain and breakup, but without stripping it of its tonal identity. Same goes for the boost circuit when I kick that in. Again, it's just an extension of that and not anything markedly different. As much as it's undoubtedly great with humbuckers, the reason I've been such a fan of the Tim for such a long time is when it comes to fattening up a clean Strat sound without making it too gritty, dirty or compressed. I would say it is absolutely unparalleled. Now you'll see in this next clip taken from that pedal show a few years ago where I'm running through a few different overdrive sounds on my board in comparison to something like the King of Tone, which I actually set a little bit more dirty in this instance. You can see how the Tim still gives that same sustain and rounded and openness under the fingers, but without being anywhere near as dirty. It's kind of like an overdrive pedal without actually overdriving your sound, if you so wish anyway. It really is unique in that respect.
That kind of thing.
Can we just A-B the Tim and the KOT just for a second?
Yeah.
That said, there is a deceptive amount of gain on tap, and in this next clip, I'm going to hit the front end of the amp a little bit harder and push that Strat into a little bit more breakup. Again, to draw a parallel with the Klon Centaur, for a number of years, the only way of getting hold of a Tim was to actually go direct through Paul Cochran himself, who'd set up a MySpace page in order for you to contact him. As such, when a product is not mass-made, but is handmade and made to order at that, the second-hand market goes through the roof as people aren't willing to wait. And subsequently, it wasn't until the Timmy, the less featured, smaller brother of the Tim, that it actually became infinitely easier to get your hands on one of these much talked about pedals. Now, despite the massive buzz surrounding the Timmy by this point, thanks in part to the burgeoning internet guitar scene, it still remained at a very modestly priced $100 for the longest time, only climbing to $129 in recent years to take into account the increase in parts costs. Over the last decade or so, there have been a few different iterations of the Timmy, primarily different colours for different dealers, but most notably in 2020, a collaboration between Paul Cochran and MXR for the release of the Timmy Mini. I've yet to actually try one of these myself, but I've read incredible things, and I'm really keen to get hold of one for my board, because, to be honest, that's the only reason the original Tim fell from my board, was its size. It's rather big to say the least, not so much in its kind of physical footprint of how much of the board it takes up, so much as its height, and finding a pedal board who kind of wasn't fouled with the hinges or the lid or whatever by the height of the foot switches and the knobs could be a little bit tricky. After an aborted attempt in 2016, Paul's posted some not so subtle hints recently on his Facebook page that there may actually be a Tim reissue coming this year, 2022. So if you like the sound of the Timmy but want the full functionality of the boost and the loop of the Tim, maybe worth waiting a little while longer rather than paying the insane prices that they are currently fetching on Reverb. Alternatively, if you live in a digital universe, there is a brilliant recreation of the Timmy in the Line 6 Helix, the Teamer, which you'll hear in this next clip, me taken from Paul David's solo challenge. Hopefully you'll hear what I mean when I say it's a great pedal for kind of fattening up a clean tone and almost giving you the impression that the signal is overdriven, but without actually sounding overdriven. So, to ask a question that I've not asked in a fairly long time actually on Friday Fretworks, is it worth the hype? Now, of course, to answer this question, we need to know what type of overdrive sound it is that you're going for. And it's worth saying that there is arguably none more transparent a pedal out there than the Tim. And given the time frame, we could probably make a fairly convincing argument that it is the original transparent overdrive. And as great as this is, it can make for a fairly warts and all experience of playing it. Every slide, scrape or flub amplified and not masked by a flattering EQ curve. Of course, those cut EQ controls could be a little counterintuitive, depending on what you're used to in a pedal, and having owned the Tim for a good number of years now, I'm still convinced that the 3 clipping options are subtle at best. All of that said, if you're looking for an overdrive pedal that takes your core tone and enhances it rather than masking it, to quote Carly Simon, in my opinion at the very least, nobody does it better. As ever, I'm Chris Buck, you're watching Friday Fretworks. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, see you soon.